Hi friends, Miles here with another Digitone only tutorial, and this time I want to talk to you about sound design on the Digitone. Because in the last couple of days and weeks I've done a lot of sound designing on the Digitone and really liked it, and I found myself coming back to certain techniques that I like to use to make the Digitone sound a little bit more warm and maybe analog sounding. And of course I know that the Digitone is appreciated by very many people, including myself, for the FM sounds that it can produce. But I also think that it has a very nice side to it where you get some warmer, more analog sounding sounds out of it. This way you can also tame your FM sounds a little bit better and make them maybe match also better into the mix of the music that you are producing. So in this video I want to share 6 tips with you how you can make your Digitone sound a little bit more analog and warm. Let's go! Tip number 1 is find the sweet spots with operators A and B. The operators can very quickly sound quite glassy or metallic, so you have to treat them with good care. And I like to keep the levels fairly low when I want to go for warmer sounds to avoid this. So just to give you an example, I loaded up an initial sound here on the Digitone, and it sounds like this. And you can really hear now when I bring up the levels of the operators that it can very quickly sound very glassy and harsh. So I like to, like I already said, to go for warmer sounds. I like to keep the levels quite low. So here with operator A, I go for something around 20, maximum of 30 is also fine. And with B, the same. You can really hear the glassiness coming in. So yeah, I like to keep it quite low as well. And for operator B, I found also a very nice sweet spot somewhere between 70 and 85. Here you can hear it. The sound has a little bit more grit to it, but yeah, I really like it around this level. And this way, when you experiment a bit with that, you can find some nice combinations that sound very good together. And now to get back to the synth page number 1, regarding the ratios, I also like to keep those very low. And definitely one thing that you want to keep in mind is to keep the ratio of operator B2 very low, as it will get very harsh quite soon, like I'll show you right now. Yeah, very glassy, and yeah, of course we don't want this glassy, harsh sounds in our analog sounds. So what I would like to do is to go a little bit further down, like for example 0.5 here. Yeah, this gives a way better foundation to build an analog sounds. And also one very important thing is of course to scroll through the different algorithms here on synth page number 1 and just see which ones you really like. You can already hear that different algorithms just with these very low levels and nothing barely done here to the synth engine, they already sound very different. And the algorithm bring me directly to tip number 2. Tip number 2 is to use algorithm number 2 or 8. For warm sounds, I see myself coming back to these 2 algorithms many times, and I just loaded up 2 different ARPs here that are, by the way, part of my Digitone sound pack that I linked you also down in the description, which is free to download. And yeah, these 2 ARPs you can already see here. The first one is based on algorithm number 8. And, the second one is based on algorithm number 8, and the first one here is built on algorithm number 2, and the first one sounds like this. And the second one sounds like this. Yeah, and you can already hear that algorithm number 8 has a little bit more of a glassy touch to it, but still sounds very warm, a combination that I really like a lot, especially with this glassiness in the high end. But of course, you need to set your operators right for that. And then algorithm number 2 here is very special, because with this algorithm you can treat basically your carrier C and the operator B like two different oscillators without the typical FM modulation. Because in this algorithm both the operator and the carrier are going to completely separate outputs. You can see here that C is going to X and B is going to Y without modulating each other. And if you set your mix to 0 here, like I did, you can get very close to the idea of having two oscillators like you'd have in a subtractive synth. So for example, now when I put the mix all the way over to X, I just hear the carrier C, which sounds like this. And if I put it all the way over to Y, it sounds like this. A little bit more high end to it, a little bit more aggressive. And then when I mix them both together, I get this sound, which I really, really like. This is, by the way, something I learned from Ivar Tryti, so I want to give him the credits for this. If you don't know him, he's an amazing musician. His work is fantastic. I've learned a ton from him, and you should definitely check him and his work out. I've linked his channel down in the video description. Now, tip number 3 is use low-pass filters and envelopes. Although we already tried to avoid the metallic sounds of the Digitone with the previous settings that we made, you might still hear some harsh high end. And to get rid of this and give the sound a little bit more warmth, I really like here in the filter section to use the filter types LP2 and LP4. It really depends on the sound which filter types I use, but if I want to keep some more of the high end, I go with low pass filter 2, and in this case here I wanted to cut a little bit more of it, so I went with low pass filter number 4. You can then also use the resonance like I did here. You can hear now it gets kind of like a little bit assy stylish, but I really like to use this to boost some lower mid-range frequencies to add additional character to the sound, and then of course you can play with the filter frequency. And one additional thing that I really like to use is the filter envelope here, and I like to have a slightly slower attack on the filter envelope. Like you can see here, the attack is set to 8, and then turn kind of like the envelope depth up, like I set it here to 5. And having a little attack and a short decay time on the filter envelope, for example, works especially great for ARPs like that. We can even make the decay time a little bit shorter. Gets a little snappier, and now if we turn the envelope up, yeah, I really like to play around with that. It's a super nice way to to really get some of the harshness out of your sounds, and also of course really enrich the sound and make them unique. Tip number 4 is to use drive on the sounds. I think this might be the most obvious of all tips, but drives really gives the sound some additional warmth and grit, which is great for more analog sounds. So I like to use it quite a lot. You can see here on this sound here that I already showed you. I'll bring the envelope back up. That the drive here is set to the maximum, and then I also loaded up another sound. This is my Butzin bass lead that is also part of the sound pack that I mentioned before, and here you can also see that the drive is up to the max. So if I would here, for example, take it away, you can hear still warm but not so much grit to it, and now if I add it, can really hear the sound coming to life a little bit more. If you do that, just be sure that you adjust the volume a little bit, because the sound gets, of course, louder with a lot of drive. So I like to turn it a little bit back, just to keep my levels in place. Now, tip number 5 is to use detune on your sounds. Detune is great to add movement to your sounds and this way make them sound less digital and a little bit more analog. On the Digitone, there are basically 3 ways to do this. The first one, and I will again use the example of this sound here. The first one is on synth page number 1, and it's of course here the detune function that I, for this sound here, cranked up to 70. And when I take it out, I will now dial it back in and pay some close attention what happens to the sound and to the movement it gets. You can really hear how the sound begins to move, and of course you can do it This is way too much, of course, but yeah, somewhere here around 70, I tend to find some very nice sweet spots. And the second opportunity is here on the synth page 1, but on page 2, you have the offset of the carriers and the operators, and there you can offset the sounds a little bit and this way detune them against each other. So here we are using carrier C and operator B1. And if I now bring this, just some slide level adjustments are totally fine. You can hear how it adds additional movement. You can also, of course, here go very extreme as well. But yeah, you just need to be careful that it doesn't sound too detuned, but a little bit of slight detuning like this here is totally fine to add additional movement. And then the third way to do is of course via the LFO, and then you go, for example, to the pitch all, the destination, set the destination to synth pitch all, and then you can, of course, I also like to do it very slightly here, just somewhere around here, because if you're again going too extreme, sound will just get chaotic. But definitely below 1, and I like to have it somewhere between, where is it, 0.10 or 0.30 is kind of like the maximum that I go for, just to add some additional movement. But in general, I try to go more with options 1 and 2 because I want to keep the LFOs free for other fun stuff. And this brings me directly to tip number 6, which is to use the LFOs. LFOs are great to create movements in your sounds, and the Digitone has some really great destinations to make your sounds a little bit more analog and a little bit more moving. And the first one for that I really like is, I'll go back to this sound that we already know from the previous tips, and here you can see that I added an LFO to the filter envelope, which is super nice to just make the filter a little bit move and this way give the sound a little bit movement. I can make it a little bit more extreme. So that you can hear it better. But I think this is a really nice technique to add additional movements to the sound. The second destination that I really like is, of course, the filter frequency. Therefore, I will go back to this sound here and just want to show you something that I also did in one of my previous jams, to use kind of like a rhythmic filter movement, and there experiment a little bit with different speeds. So let me just bring the multiplier a little bit more down, and then of course set the sound to trig, and then okay, we are already pretty fast here, so I like to set it down that it is more rhythmic. You can, by the way, when you hold function and then scroll through the speed, you can go in kind of like 8, 16, 12 steps so that the sound definitely stays rhythmic. Like this here, for example. Sorry, that was a little bit extreme. Let's go here. Yeah, this is something that I really like. And when you want to bring this now to the next level, you can of course use the second LFO and then manipulate the speed of the first one. To set this to trig as well. I think it's now a little bit too fast, so I want to go definitely slower with this one as well, so that we can hear it better. It's still very fast. Yeah, but I think you get the idea. A really nice way to add additional movement to the sound. And then of course you can also use, like I already shown, the synth, the LFO on synth pitch all. Therefore I'm just going to reload that sound. Where is it? Here is it. And then go to synth pitch all. And there what I really like to do is to slowly fade in the synth pitch. So basically when we're bringing this down here a little bit, and then we're having some movement going on. Maybe bring it to 2, something like that. And now slowly fade it in. And that's of course a little bit too extreme. And a little bit too fast fading in. But just by experimenting with this a little bit, you can find some very nice sweet spots, and then there it comes in. Just give your sounds some additional movement. And then the last thing with the LFOs I want to show you, or what I like to use, is to use the synth mix here as an LFO destination, and then also again put the speed very slow. This is a little extreme. Okay, I will turn this down a little bit. But you can now, in this extreme setting, really hear how the sound moves. Also, let's set this not to a triangle, but to a sine wave, that it moves very smoothly. Yeah, you can now really hear how it moves between the mix of the Y and the X. And if we just reduce this a little bit, make it very slight, maybe somewhere around here, you can really hear that you have some very nice additional movement to your sound. And yeah, this is great to emulate, of course, the movement of an analog oscillator. And of course, there are many more which are really cool for that purpose, so many more LFO destinations. It's definitely worth just experimenting with the destinations a little bit and find the ones that work best for you. And that wraps up my 6 tips on how to make your Digitone sound a little bit more warm and analog. I hope you found the video useful. I'm currently looking into planning a second live stream where I want to go more into the topic of sound designing. If you find that useful or find that interesting and would be down for that, I would be super happy if you let me know. And till then, I'm wishing you a great time. Stay safe and creative, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.